In 1982, the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series, and I may have very well been the catalyst that propelled them to the victory. Let me tell you how. So it was May of 82, and one of my good buddies and I, Chip, we used to love going to the Braves games. And we were 16 years old. We bought tickets in this particular game. We went to a bunch of games, but this particular game, we were on the visitor side down the third base line at Atlanta Stadium, and we were on the front row right over the bullpen. Back then, the bullpen was kind of down the third base line. I guess it's this way, and we were right on the front row. And we used to like get to the ball field early. And back then the Braves were not very good, so you get there early and get home run balls or batting practice and all that. So again, some people would they would get in the outfield, in line. It was kind of hard, but we were in our seats, so we're on the side. So really, there was nobody behind us yet. And the Cardinals were doing batting practice. And back then, pitchers, the National League pitchers would bat back then. Even then, some would do batting practice. Usually, if you're pitching, you would do batting practice. But then, if they're good hitters, they would always do batting practice. In that particular game, Joaquin Andujar was the pitcher, and he did participate in batting practice. So he's batting, and he was actually a home run hitter for a pitcher. He would get quite a few home runs, so he had some power, and he actually hits a ball. It comes foul, but it comes right behind us. So my buddy Chip runs up there and gets the ball. So he has his ball walking into our hit. So batting practice is kind of over. Joaquin comes out and he sits in left field. So he's sitting out in left field. It's hard to say distance, but I'd say he's probably, I don't know, 30 yards away from us, 40, maybe 50. I mean, he's out in left field and we're over, again, front row of the stands. And so I don't know what Chip was thinking at the time, but so Joaquin's sitting there. He has sitting on the ground with his knees up, has hands on his knees like this. And Chip's like, "Hey, Joaquin," and he turns and he looks up, kind of over his shoulder, and he says, "Will you sign my baseball?" As if he has a Sharpie in his back pocket or whatever on the ball field. He has his glove on. He's got his glove there. He's like getting ready to start warming up, I guess. And so, but it did look like he kind of nodded yes. Again, I don't know if he heard him. I know he heard him say Joaquin because he turned. I don't know if he heard what he asked. I don't know if he even spoke English, but he thought he nodded yes. But Chip rears back. He throws this ball, and it bounces right, just a few feet from Joaquin, comes up, and bam, hits him right in the side of the head and rolls a few feet away into left field. And so we're just like, oh, and Joaquin turns and he is glaring. He is mad. Luckily, we were up high, so he could not get to us because I'm pretty sure he would have come into the stands. And I've kind of read his history since then, and he has a volatile history, both in the minor leagues and several different instances. So anyway, so we were kind of like, whoa, okay, that wasn't good. Meanwhile, a pitching coach comes out, and we see him. I think his name was Kittle. And so Chip's like, "Hey, Mr. Kittle, that's my ball out there, and I sent it out to Joaquin to sign it, and can you get it for me?" So he actually goes, so he can't sign autographs right now. He gets out there and gets the ball, brings it back, gets it to Chip. So by then, so Joaquin comes over, and again, he's kind of down below us, and he starts warming up. And maybe he did this all the time. I never seen him warm up, but he is fired up. I mean, he is throwing hard and he just seemed angry, to say the least. And so then meanwhile, these guys come behind us and they start heckling him. Again, I don't know if he speaks English. I think he spoke some kind of English, probably broken English, whatever. I don't know. But they're heckling him like crazy. And the more they heckle him, you can see the angrier he is getting. It was obvious. So anyway, the game starts. And the first inning, the Cardinals are visitors, they bat. Then the Braves come to bat. Well, the first batter is Claudell Washington. He brushes him back. Joaquin throws inside. He can tell he is playing fired up. A couple batters later, Dale Murphy comes up. He knocks Dale Murphy down. He basically tries to hit him, knocks him down, and he is throwing like on fire. Anyway, so he goes ahead and pitches that game. I think the Braves actually won the game, believe it or not, after Joaquin left. Biff Pocoroba was the Braves catcher. If that's not the best baseball name ever, Biff Pocoroba real name. He hits a home run, the ninth inning, the Braves win. But Joaquin pitched a great game. Well, throughout the rest of that season, he actually had the lowest ERA. He had, I think he had a 2.47 ERA. It was the only time in his career he ever had a whole season under 3 ERA. He pitched against the Braves in the playoffs and beat them. The Cardinals swept them. Then he pitches and wins 2 games in the World Series. One of them, he takes a liner off his shin. They thought it broke his shin. He stayed in the game, and he wins the game. He should have won the MVP, I think, but another player won it. But he had the best year he'd ever had in his life. And even up to that time, this is like mid-May. He had a couple of starts for this game. He hadn't pitched particularly well, and he pitched great the rest of the season. So, again, I don't know if that was the catalyst or not, but it sure appeared like Chip hitting Joaquin in the head with that ball arose an anger in him and a focus and a motivation that propelled him. And then again, when he played in the postseason, he pitched out of his mind again against the Braves. Again, he hit a couple batters. He was pitching angry and won the World Series. So what's my point with all this? You have to know what your motivation is. And I mentioned before, I coached a lot. I mean, I've run a company for a while now. And especially when you're doing sports, it's clear people have different motivations. They're motivated by different incentives. So, some people are motivated by praise. Others are more motivated by screaming and yelling. And so you have to know the motivation. But this is more about yourself. As you need to know that as well. I don't think anybody really is like, well, I love to be yelled at. But if that's what you need, motivation, you need accountability, then you need a coach, you need a trainer. For a long time, I was anti-trainer. Now I had worked out. My dad actually bought us weights. I know you couldn't tell it by looking at me, but he bought us weights when we were in 3rd grade. One of our friends had been lifting weights. I know now people are like, oh, don't do that. But, this is a long time ago. And this kid was, really strong. He was a really good pitcher and all that. It's in the baseball league. And so my dad got the idea, y'all need to be lifting weights too. So he bought us weights. We were lifting weights way back then. And, so we got pretty strong doing that. But so I knew, kind of how to lift weights. I was lifting since I was in 3rd grade. I never felt like I needed a trainer. I never felt like I'm never going to do better. But just in my older age now, the last few years, I actually have joined a gym that has some group sessions and training sessions, and I've participated in those a few times. And I clearly work out harder when I have a trainer. So I know that. So I know that I'll get more out of myself with a trainer. The other thing I realized is, and I've done on TikTok, done several challenges, walking challenges, boxing challenges, and that sort of thing. And they can be the silliest, it's not about the reward, it's about the competition. One challenge I did, we had to walk as many steps as we could in the month of August. You couldn't do any more than 30,000 steps in a day. And I did 30,000 steps every day. I walked almost 1 million steps in the month, and I won this Joe Biden trophy right here. And then last year I won this Michael Myers trophy. Those are both my walking trophies. And I was walking 30,000, a few times like 40,000 steps in a day. And, when I'm doing these challenges, I knew I had other people, other my work, coworkers, that were motivated. They were trying to beat me. And, I'm not saying it was easy, but the first 15, 20,000 steps was pretty easy. I was like, oh, I'm in 15, 20,000 steps. Well, over the last few months, when I go to the gym, this is a day I went every day this week. And I go usually about 5 o'clock in the morning or so. I get on the treadmill and I'm like looking like, okay, it's been 5 minutes. It's been 10 minutes. I'm at, 2,000, 3,000 steps. It's like every step is tough. And it's all about the motivation. When I knew I had this competition that I was in, it became much easier. I had this, I didn't even look at the steps. So I was like 15,000, And so I know that about myself. I had another time when I was trying to lose some weight, and my son was going to join a boxing gym. So I went with him and they actually talked me into joining. Do you have any goals? I'm like, oh, I'd love to lose like 20 pounds. And he goes, well, we actually have this 6-week challenge. You give us $500. We give you a trainer. We give you unlimited boxing lessons or boxing classes. We give you a diet to follow. And, if you can lose, I can't remember if it was pounds or percentage of fat or whatever, but I had to lose roughly, I think it was about 20 pounds I had to lose in 6 weeks. And you measured, you weighed in every week, and I went to boxing classes every morning. And I mean, I was like highly motivated, to try to get this $500 back. And it wasn't about the money. I mean, I guess a little bit, but I knew at the end of the day, when it got down to the end, if I did accomplish it, they were going to roll that 500. And sure enough, they did. I did accomplish it. And I was able to lose the weight, did the weigh in. And then, of course, they talked me into doing a 6-week, or I think it was 6 months, classes or whatever subscription, in exchange for the $500. But it was about the competition. So I know that about myself. So if the question is for you, what motivates you? Is it competition? Is it praise? Is it just your own self-worth? Whatever those things are, I'd encourage you to write those down. What are your goals? And start off with your wildest goal. I want to weigh, my wildest goal right now is only 170 pounds. I haven't weighed 170 pounds. I ran 2 marathons in 2001. I didn't get down to 170 pounds. So that's my wild idea. Let me get to 170 pounds, and the older you get, the harder it is to lose the weight. But, maybe I can get the right boxing class, the right trainer, the right whatever, and all the stars will align and I'll be able to accomplish that. But I think it's imperative that I write that down. And then, that's the 170 is, I want to hit it by a certain date, by, in 1 year, I'd like to lose, 50 pounds, whatever it be to get down to 170. Well, then what are my incremental steps to get there? What am I going to do on a daily basis? Is it, count calories, note the calories, exercise, whatever those things are? I need daily, weekly, monthly goals. I need to measure those goals. And then the key thing goes back to the motivation. Now, I'm not saying get somebody to hit you in the head with a baseball, but what is the motivation? What's going to motivate me to accomplish this, to stick with this? Is it, noting my health, and I've got, annual physicals, and I want to go to my doctor and want to make sure I get a good report and want to live a long time for my, my family? And, or is it that I want to feel better? Is it to look better, to fit into some clothes I haven't fit into a long time, or to buy some new clothes? Look at the 170, I have to buy a whole new wardrobe. That's the question is, what's your motivation? So, I would figure out what your motivation is, do some introspective, ask people, your friends. My wife knows, I've told her a bunch of times, I'm not the kind that responds well to, trying to kind of hard ask. My dad was very, very difficult, was hard on us. And so I don't respond well when somebody is, hard on me, is just coming at me like bam, bam. That doesn't do well for me. I'm better at the encouraging part. And competition. So those are the two things I normally need to look for, as a competition and it's amazing the things you can accomplish. I mean, I'm a below average athletic person, I would say. I run a couple of marathons, run a lot of half marathons, run a bunch of 5 and 10Ks. And, I kind of surprise myself with the things I can do just by saying, hey, I'm going to do this race. I'm going to do this marathon. I'm going to do this half marathon. What do? You get a training plan. You find, what's the date out? I got 6 months to train, and it gives you daily and weekly mileage that you need to do. You got a plan, and you just follow that plan. Now, the other part of it is, my first marathon, actually, I saw one of my neighbors out running a couple of times on a Sunday. I see him like out, and I go somewhere and come back, he's still running. So it's like, hey, Matt, what are you doing on Sunday? Because I just like to run. So I'm been running 10, 12 miles on a Sunday. And I'm like, why don't you run a marathon? He said, well, I would if I had anybody run with me. And I was like, he said, why don't you do it? And I'm like, well, I mean, I've run some 5-mile runs, 10K, 6 miles, that sort of thing, but never done anything that long before. He goes, well, why don't you do it? I said, well, he goes, well, there's a national marathon coming up in April. This was like November. And so he goes, let's train. So I, got a training plan and looked at it. And then, we started getting out there and like every morning on our running days, which is really 4 or 5 days a week when you're training for a marathon, you're running. We would meet at 5:30 by the fire hydrant right outside our house. He was right, that my neighbor right down the street. And, we would run. And I think I was out there 95% of the time. And we actually had an infant. My son, who's 23 now, he was an infant. So, I mean, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep at the time, but I was able to get out there knowing that, hey, Matt's waiting on me. I don't want to let Matt down. And so I was out there pretty much every day. And having that, again, that motivation, that accountability helped immensely in that. And when I'm on my own, I'm just saying, hey, I'm going to go up and run at 5:30 every morning. I do it a few times, but then, I have an excuse. I stay up too late. Whatever, don't feel great. I'm tired, whatever the excuse is. And I don't get up. Then I miss that day. The next thing you know, you miss the next day. Then you miss the next day. And before you know it, you're off your schedule and you're off your goal, and then you get frustrated. Well, that's what happens to me anyway. So I know that having accountability, having a partner, having a trainer, and I can't express enough. I would have argued this the whole exact opposite way. You don't need all those things. You can just write down your goals and you can accomplish them. Just do it. Just the old Nike slogan. But as I've gotten older now, I realize, there's a reason why Tiger Woods, Scotty Scheffler, all these guys have, trainers. They've got their caddies, they've got their coaches. A lot of them have trainers on top of that. I got a chance to go to the American Express, one of the match play championships out in, I think it was in Carlsbad near San Diego years ago. It was really cool because we stayed at the resort and all the golfers, the top 64 golfers in the world, were all at this resort. It was crazy. So the very first day, it was raining like crazy. So the day was canceled. So I'd gone to the gym like early in the morning, and, it's California time. I'm sitting there and I'm kind of working out on a bench, and this big old guy walks in and he picks up like these 10 or 15, I think like 5 or 10 pound weights, like these little bitty weights. And he's standing there and he's like just messing around with these weights a little bit. And I was like, that looks weird. I mean, I know sometimes some, people do different weights and amounts, but I mean, this looked ridiculous. Well, a few minutes later, VJ Singh walks in, sits down next to me, and the guy hands him the weight. So that was VJ's trainer. So not only did he have a swing coach, not only did he have a caddy, a swing coach, but he also had a trainer. Justin Leonard came in later. Tiger Woods came in after that. Tiger Woods was standing behind me waiting on a treadmill or a Stairmaster, and I get off and he gets on my Stairmaster, and then I get on a bike. He gets on a bike next to me, and it was the weirdest thing because we're sitting there and they had screens. Everybody had a screen. It's a pretty ritzy place, and they had a commercial came up. I was watching ESPN. A commercial comes up for the golf tournament we're at, and I had his picture on it. And I was like, how weird must that be to be, I mean, I'm just, of course he's used to it, but it just kind of hit me like he's sitting there watching and he's on TV, watching it. I just thought that was kind of funny. Another funny thing that day. So it was about, I think it's the next day actually, but, I'm on Central Time. So East Coast, so I was going to eat dinner at like 4 o'clock. And, so I go to the restaurant, it's like empty. There's hardly anybody in there at all. And so I'm waiting for the hostess, and they come up, and I'm telling you, I've got a table for 2 or whatever. And I turn around, Tiger Woods right behind me again. So I'm like, are you stalking me? And he was kind of loud. He goes, oh, yeah, yeah. So anyway, well, he and his caddy and his coach, I think it was Hank Haney back then, was his swing coach. But they sat like right behind us, and we could hear them strategizing and, the coaching and all that. And you just kind of realize these guys aren't just doing it on their own. They have a team around them to motivate them, to give them advice, suggestions, all that. Again, I know we all can't afford that, but my point is, find that person for you, or find online trainers. Somehow, whatever your motivation is, find that trigger. And if you do that, you'll reach your goal and you'll finish well. Thanks for watching.